parents wanted me to pay my brother's $40,000 debt, then tried to steal from my account. Here's how I fought back. I always knew my family saw me as a backup plan. I just never realized how far they'd go to take advantage of me. That changed the day I got the call. It was a Tuesday evening and I was halfway through unwinding after work. I was still in my home office, finishing up emails. My phone buzzed and I glanced at the screen. Mom. Strange. She never called unless she needed something. I let it ring, debating whether to answer. It had been months since we last spoke, Thanksgiving, to be exact. I already knew how the conversation would go. First, the fake pleasantries. Then the guilt trip. And finally, the request. I sighed and picked up. Hey, Mom. Oh, sweetheart. How are you? How's work? Are you still at that tech company? There it was. The overly cheerful tone. The forced small talk. She didn't care about my job. She didn't care about my life. She cared about whatever favor she was about to ask. Yeah, I'm still there, I said cautiously. That's wonderful. We're so proud of you. And how's your apartment? Oh, and your boyfriend? Still seeing him. I blinked. That one stung. I had broken off my engagement a year ago, a breakup my mother had barely acknowledged because she was too focused on my brother's latest financial disaster. Mom, what's going on? I finally asked, cutting to the chase. A pause. Then, a shaky breath. It's Jason, she said. I felt my stomach tighten. Of course it was. Jason, my younger brother. The golden child. The one who had never been held accountable for anything in his life. He's in some trouble, she continued. He's gotten himself into some debt. A lot of debt. I already knew what was coming next. How much? I asked. A long silence. Then, $40,000. My grip on the phone tightened. Jason had racked up $40,000 in debt? That wasn't credit card debt. That wasn't student loans. That was a life-destroying amount of money. How the hell did this happen? I demanded. Mom hesitated. That's not important right now. The hell it isn't, I snapped. How does someone even accumulate that much? What did he do? A pause. Then her voice softened. It doesn't matter, sweetheart. What matters is that we need to fix it. Jason needs your help. There it was. The favor. And I knew, no matter what I said next day, this wasn't going to end well. I can't, I said. The words felt foreign coming out of my mouth. Because I had never said them before. Not to my family. Not when they needed something. Not when they used that tone, the one that made it sound like my existence was only valuable when I was helping them. Mom was silent for a moment. Then she let out a soft, broken sigh. Sweetheart, we don't have anyone else. You're the only one who can fix this. Fix. For example, Jason's debt was caused by some paperwork error. Like this wasn't his fault. Like I was supposed to swoop in and save him, just like always. No, I said again, firmer this time. I'm sorry, Mom, but I can't. I won't. And that was when the tone shifted. The soft, pleading voice? Gone. Replaced with something sharp and cold. You're being selfish, she hissed. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us? My stomach dropped. There it was. The guilt trip. I had spent my whole life being the responsible one. The one who worked part-time in high school while Jason played video games. The one who took out student loans while Jason got his rent paid for by her parents. The one who built a career while Jason found himself for 5 years. And yet somehow I was the selfish one. I took a deep breath. Mom, I have worked my ass off to build a life for myself. A life you and Dad never supported. And now you want me to throw away 40 grand to save Jason? Again? He's your brother, she snapped. And whose fault is that? I shot back. Silence. Then, do you want his blood on your hands? She whispered. My breath caught. Mom, what are you saying? He borrowed from some bad people, she said, her voice dripping with manipulation. If he doesn't pay up, they'll come after him. And when something happens to him, just remember you could have prevented it. I gritted my teeth. There it was. The nuclear option. When guilt didn't work, fear always did. Except this time. It didn't. I was done. I'm not responsible for Jason's choices, I said. And I'm not paying for them either. You'll regret this, she spat. I let out a slow breath. No, Mom. I won't. Then, before she could say another word, I hung up. And just like that, everything changed. I stared at my phone, my heart pounding. I had just done something I'd never done before. I had said no. Not in a hesitant, half-apologetic way. Not in a maybe-later way. But in a clear, absolute, non-negotiable way. And the second I hung up, I knew it. This wasn't over. Sure enough, 10 minutes later, my phone lit up with new messages. Mom, I hope you can live with yourself. Dad, your mother is crying. You broke her heart. I hope you're happy. Jason, WTF is wrong with you? You'd rather watch your brother suffer than help. I let out a bitter laugh. They really thought I'd fall for this. I'd see Mom is crying and rush to send 40 grand like it was pocket change. That I'd crumble under the weight of their words, the same way I always had. But they forgot something. I had spent years being the good child, the fixer, the responsible one. In those years, I learned everything about how they operated. I knew how they manipulated. I knew how they twisted things. I knew how they made their failures my responsibility. But this time I saw it for what it was. And I wasn't playing along anymore. I ignored the messages. I silenced my phone. And for the first time in my life, I felt free. But then, the next morning I checked my email. And my blood ran cold. I attempted to log in to my bank account. Twice. My stomach dropped. Only 2 people had ever known my banking information. My parents. I swallowed, my fingers shaking as I called my bank immediately. Hi. I need to report unauthorized login attempts to my account. The customer service rep pulled up my records. Yes, we flagged multiple failed login attempts late last night. Do you recognize the device? I already knew the answer before she even finished the question. No, that wasn't me. I had changed my passwords years ago, but they had still tried. They had actually tried to take my money. I clenched my fists, a cold rage bubbling inside me. This wasn't just manipulation anymore. This was theft. And that's when I realized they didn't just expect my money. They thought they were entitled to it. I didn't even hesitate. I called my mom. She answered on the second ring. Emma, I knew you'd. Did you try to log into my bank account? I cut her off. Silence. A long, dragging, guilty silence. Then, sweetheart, I don't know what you're talking about. Liar. Mom, I got security alerts. 2 failed login attempts. Was it you? Pause. Then, we just needed to check something. That's all. I felt my stomach churn. Check what? Jason's situation is serious, Emma, she snapped. We thought maybe, just maybe, if you saw how much you had saved, you'd come to your senses and realize you can afford to help your family. I felt physically ill. You mean you thought you could take my money before I noticed? How can you say that? She gasped, as if I had just accused her of murder. We're your family. We wouldn't steal from you. I almost laughed. You literally just admitted to trying. It's not stealing if it's family, she snapped. There it was. The entitlement. The sheer audacity. My money was theirs in their eyes. Not because I gave it to them. Not because they had earned it. But because they had decided they deserved it. Mom, I said slowly, forcing myself to stay calm. I'm done. Completely done. I already told you, Jason's debt is not my problem. And now, after this, neither are you. You don't mean that, she whispered. You'd never cut us off. We're family. Watch me, I said, and I hung up. Then, I did something I never thought I'd have to do. I called my bank. I froze my accounts. I changed my passwords. I locked everything down. And just like that, I wasn't just cutting them off emotionally. I was cutting them off financially. Forever. That night, I received one final text from Jason. Jason, you ruined our family. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I smiled. And I didn't respond. Because the truth was, I didn't ruin our family. They did. The moment they decided that my only worth was in my bank account. The moment they saw me as a resource, not a person. The moment they tried to steal from me instead of respecting me. They destroyed everything. I just finally walked away from the wreckage. And for the first time in my life, I had nothing to lose. I thought it was over. I had cut them off. I had locked my accounts. I had made it clear that Jason's debt was not my problem. But they weren't done with me yet. Because 2 days later, they showed up at my apartment. It was Saturday morning. I had just sat down with my coffee when, bang, bang, bang. Not a polite knock. Not a we're just here to talk knock. A pounding, insistent, furious knock. My stomach clenched. I walked over, peering through the peephole. Mom, Dad, Jason, all were standing outside my door. I exhaled slowly. I could ignore them, pretend I wasn't home. But I already knew they weren't going to leave quietly. So I did what I knew they wouldn't expect. I opened the door. What the hell are you doing here? I said, crossing my arms. Mom stepped forward first, her eyes already red-rimmed like she had been crying, or pretending to. Emma, please, We just need to talk. We did talk. I shot back. Over the phone. Remember? When you tried to break into my bank account? Dad scowled. That was a misunderstanding, he said. We just wanted to see. See what? If you could take my money before I noticed. Silence. Jason shifted uncomfortably, hands shoved into his pockets. He hadn't said a word yet. Mom sighed dramatically. Emma, you don't understand. Jason is in danger. These people he owes, they're not playing around. If we don't get the money, they'll come after him. And then what? I clenched my jaw. Then he learns a lesson. Jason's head snapped up. You don't care if I get hurt? He demanded. I stared at him. The same brother who had laughed every time I struggled growing up. The same brother who got bailed out of every bad decision he ever made. The same brother who never lifted a finger to help me, but expected me to save him now. I care that you never learn from your mistakes, I said coldly. And I care that you think I should suffer just so you can avoid consequences. His face turned red. You're a bitch, he spat. I smiled. And you're broke. His nostrils flared, and for a second, I thought he might actually take a swing at me. But then Mom grabbed his arm. Enough, she hissed at him before turning back to me. Emma, she said, lowering her voice. We are family. If you let this happen, if Jason gets hurt, you will never forgive yourself. I tilted my head. And if I give you 40 grand, will you forgive me for saying no the first time? Mom hesitated. I laughed. That's what I thought. I stepped back. I'm done here. And before they could say another word, I slammed the door in their faces. I didn't think they'd try again. I thought that was it. But the next morning, I woke up to a storm of messages. Not just from them, from extended family, aunts, uncles, cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. Mom had called them all, and now my phone was flooded with their opinions. Emma, you're tearing this family apart. Just help Jason. I always knew you were selfish, but this is a new level. You think your success makes you better than us? You forgot where you came from. I stared at the messages, my chest tightening. They had turned everyone against me, or at least they thought they had, because they didn't realize I had one more move left, and it was going to end this for good. Did they want a war? Fine. They were about to see what happened when I stopped playing nice. I scrolled through the endless flood of messages from aunts, uncles, and cousins, all parroting the same guilt-tripping nonsense my parents had fed them. Jason is family. You don't turn your back on family. If something happens to him, it'll be your fault. You think you're so much better than us just because you have money? Could have ignored it, but they had pushed too far. They wanted to talk about family loyalty? Fine, let's talk. I took a deep breath, and then I started typing. I went straight to the family group chat. The same chat where they had spent years ignoring me, until they needed something. I didn't yell. I didn't rant. I didn't defend myself. I just posted receipts. Screenshots of bank transfers where I had paid for Jason's past mistakes. Screenshots of text messages where my parents had guilt-tripped me for money. And just for fun, I added the bank security alert showing their attempted login to my account. And then I wrote a single message. Since you're all so invested in my finances, here's a little history lesson. This is what selfish looks like. This is what family loyalty looks like. I have given, and they've done nothing but take. So if you still think I owe them anything, feel free to send them your money instead. Then I left the chat and blocked them all. I didn't check my phone for the rest of the day. I didn't need to. I already knew how this would play out. Half of them would double down, screaming about how I was a traitor, a disgrace. The other half, they'd go silent, because deep down they knew the truth. And the best part? I didn't care about any of them anymore. They had shown me exactly who they were, and I had finally stopped making excuses for them. That night, just as I was about to go to bed, my phone rang. Unknown number. I knew exactly who it was. I let it go to voicemail. A few minutes later, the notification popped up. I hesitated for a second. Then curiosity won. I pressed play. Emma. My mother's voice came through, shaking. I hope you're happy. A dramatic pause. Your father and I are so disappointed in you. You've humiliated us. You've humiliated this family. After everything we've done for you. I closed my eyes. But you know what? She continued, voice sharp as a knife. You'll regret this, because one day you're going to need us. And when that day comes, don't expect us to be there. Click. The message ended, and I smiled. Because for the first time in my life, I had nothing to lose. I stared at my phone, my mother's words still ringing in my ears. One day you're going to need us. And when that day comes, don't expect us to be there. I actually laughed. It wasn't bitter. It wasn't angry. It was pure amusement. Because the truth was I had never needed them. They had spent years making sure I was on my own. Never supporting my dreams. Never helping me through struggles. Never showed up unless it benefited them. So now they wanted to pretend they were the ones walking away? No. I had left them long before they even realized it. And I was never looking back. I expected silence after that voicemail. I thought they'd finally understand that I was done. But the next morning, they tried one last desperate move. I woke up to a notification from my bank. An attempt to withdraw money. Again, I felt my stomach twist. I had already locked my accounts. I had already changed my passwords. But they were still trying. I called my bank immediately. We flagged the attempt, the rep told me. It was declined, of course. But we highly recommend reporting this as fraud. Fraud. The word felt heavy. Because if I reported them, that was it. There would be no coming back from it. No more pretending. No more second chances. No more but we're family excuses. It would be official. And I'd finally be free. I thought about it for a long time. Reporting them meant legal action. It meant police reports, fraud investigations, real consequences. Was I ready for that? I sat there, staring at my phone, my stomach tight. Then I thought about everything. The manipulation. The lies. The way they had used me without a second thought. And suddenly the answer became crystal clear. I called the bank back. I want to file a fraud report, I said. And just like that, the power shifted. I didn't check in to see what happened next. I didn't need to. I already knew the fallout would be devastating for them. They had never faced real consequences before. Mom couldn't sweet-talk her way out of this. Dad couldn't intimidate his way out of this. Jason couldn't lie his way out of this. They had pushed too far. And now they were finally paying for it. I imagined the moment when they realized their mistake. When they checked their accounts and saw the fraud alert. When the bank flagged their names. When they realized that I wasn't afraid of them anymore. And for the first time, I felt zero guilt. I had spent my life believing I owed them something. But in reality, they had never given me anything except reasons to walk away. And I finally had. For good. I expected chaos after filing the fraud report. And I was right. Not even 2 hours later, my phone exploded with calls from blocked numbers. Then came the texts. Dad, you're out of your damn mind. This is a family business and you just made it legal? Mom, how could you do this to us? You're going to regret this, Emma. Jason, are you serious? You reported Mom and Dad to the bank. What is wrong with you? I smiled. Because for the first time, they weren't asking for anything. They were begging. The power had shifted. And they hated it. The next day, I got an email from my bank. Fraud confirmed. Since the attempted withdrawal had been from a family account, the bank had flagged them permanently. They wouldn't be able to open new accounts. They wouldn't be able to apply for new credit. And worst of all, they would now be on record for attempted financial fraud. Meaning that if they ever tried scamming someone else, banks would see the alert. They were trapped. And I had no sympathy. Because they had brought this on themselves. That night, one final voicemail came through. It was Mom. Her voice was wrecked. Emma, please. A shaky breath. I don't know what to do. Your father is furious. Jason is blaming us. The whole family has turned on me. You have to fix this. I have to fix this. Even after everything, she still thought it was my job to clean up their mess. She still thought I was the solution to their problems. Not because she loved me. Not because she missed me. But because I was still useful. And that was all I needed to hear. I deleted the voicemail. Then I blocked her number. The next morning, I woke up to silence. No messages. No calls. No guilt trips. Just peace. For the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for the next crisis. I wasn't bracing for the next guilt trip. I was free. And the best part? I didn't feel a single ounce of regret. A month passed. A month of silence. A month of peace. A month of finally living my life without the constant weight of their expectations. And then, one afternoon as I was finishing work, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I almost ignored it. Almost. But something inside me told me to answer. So I did. And the moment I heard the voice on the other end, I knew. Emma, please don't hang up. It was Mom. Her voice was different. No anger. No manipulation. No entitlement. Just defeat. I didn't speak. I let her sit in the silence. She sighed and I could hear the exhaustion in her breath. I know you hate us, she said quietly. And I don't blame you. That caught me off guard. She hesitated. I don't know how to fix this. I stayed silent. Your father and I are struggling. Jason barely speaks to us anymore. The family is done with us. And I keep thinking, was it all worth it? I exhaled slowly. I don't hate you, I finally said. And that was the truth. I had hated them for so long, but somewhere along the way, the hate faded. Not because I forgave them, but because they weren't worth my anger anymore. I just stopped needing you, I added. Her breath hitched. I thought family was supposed to last forever, she whispered. It is, I said. But only when it's real. A long pause. Goodbye, Mom. Click. I didn't block her this time. I didn't have to. Because I knew she wouldn't call again. She finally understood. I was never coming back. Years passed. I built a life that was truly mine. A career I was proud of. Relationships built on respect, not obligation. A home filled with peace, not guilt. And most importantly, I learned that family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up. It's about who loves you without conditions. It's about who values you even when you have nothing to give. And that was the greatest lesson they ever taught me. Because in losing them, I found myself. Hope you enjoyed this story as much as I do. Help this small channel grow by hitting that like button, subscribing, and sharing with your friends. Every bit of support means the world. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.